I wish I could say that it was actually like motivated by our political climate right now, because I think the film is actually kind of a good answer to what's happening right now and how divisive everything's becoming. But it really was sort of born out of just wanting to write a story about my mother, and then it's a complete coincidence that it speaks to where we are right now. So it sat in my drawer for 6 years probably, and then I was approached by a sort of like a women's empowerment filmmaking thing. And that's how I met Emily, and Emily read it and immediately was like, I'll play this, and which was lucky because I had like a director's book with her head pasted into the section marked dream casting, and I showed it to her. Yes, I know, it was incredible. And rather than like thinking I was a serial killer, she was like, I will still do the film. So it was one of those manifesty things. But a kind of crazy thing happened, and we didn't get to make it the first time around, and I lost the money because I was unable to make the film. And then it was actually Emily. She was the only man left standing after this opportunity kind of went by the wayside. And all of a sudden, I found myself without money, without like a film institute, the support that used to be behind me, without a production company. And Emily was just like, she got me on the phone and she said, I was like, I think I'm going to take a little time off. I don't know if I want to be in this business anymore. And I just remember you were like, no. She was like, that's fine. Yeah, you're going to direct it. Just let me.
You have to make this movie. Don't be ridiculous. What? First of all, it was just completely compelling as to read. It was a very, as an actor or just as somebody that reads a million mostly bad scripts, I'm always reading scripts, and the ones that stand out, and they're very few and far between, are ones that have a very specific world. And this world was so I love the feeling of being given a sort of key and to a door that will open and show you a world that you've just never seen before, that's just full of all this detail and specificity in this world that Anna had conjured in Dakota in the 70s or whatever, is it early 80s?
81.
81.
So right on that cusp.
Was so fascinating to me, and she managed to tell the story of her mother in this 10-minute short in a very complex. She was a really complex character, somebody who was on the surface being incredibly sort of enthusiastic and full of beans and life and spirit, and then you could also feel beneath a kind of sadness and a poetry, and that she's battling the same kind of demons as we all do, but putting such a brave, sweet face on everything. And she's obviously got vats of intelligence and sympathy, and anyway, this character I found very poetic, and the world so specific, and it was funny as well as being really about something, and as we were saying, it speaks to this moment so amazingly. It's all about the Czechoslovakian woman bringing in Cambodian refugees in the 80s to Fargo, North Dakota, and that it speaks to a time in America when the idea of bringing refugees from other countries was a kind of noble one. That was what defined what was good about being an American. So it managed to speak to all that politics, but in a way that was very not on the nose and not polemic and just entertaining.
I think in a broad sense, I do think about the femaleness of it all, to a certain degree when I'm looking at it from above. Like, for instance, I made a teen sex comedy, and it was really interesting to me to see that from a female perspective. Like, what is having sex for the first time? Like, for a female, it's not like meatballs, you know what I mean? And so that definitely informs things. And in this case, I think it was just the case, since it was my mom and it was so personal, it was just about putting that like ridiculous specificity on the screen, and she just happened to be a female main character, and so it wasn't as much about that. But yeah, so it changes from project to project.
One thing, I think that's what you look for, as a character who's more than one thing. And this character is about 10 different things, and I just love her. And when you meet Anna's mum, it's just impossible not to love this woman. She's such an incredible life force. And so, yeah, it was just an honor to get to play someone like her.